जिंदगी के सीखे जिसके आंचल में, गुने मंत्र सिद्धांत जहां विज्ञान कला के, खुलते नए क्षितिज बहुरंगी जहां निरंतर मिलती विमल दृष्टियां इन विषयों पर, विनत हमारा मस्तक इस विद्या मंदिर को, वंदन प्रणत हमारा इस शुभ परिसर को, शत शत नमन हमारा इस ज्ञान स्रोत को, भाव बुद्धि मन होते विकसित यहाँ हमारे, मूल सभ्यता संस्कृति के हो मुखरित सारे, सीखा पाठ जहाँ हमने समता ममता का, सहिष्णुता सहयोग वेदना और विवेक का, अर्पित पुष्प हमारे इस कर्म भूमि को, वंदन प्रणत हमारा इस शुभ परिसर को, शत शत नमन हमारा इस ज्ञान स्रोत को, करते प्रणय आज जहां भी हम जाएंगे, खुशबू इस परिसर की सुंदर फैलाएंगे, उन्नत भाल करेंगे इसका कर्म वचन से, जीवन आलोकित कर देंगे शांति प्रेम से, अर्चन नमन हमारा इस ज्ञान स्रोत को, वंदन प्रणत हमारा इस शुभ परिसर को, शत शत नमन हमारा इस ज्ञान स्रोत को, इस ज्ञान स्रोत को, इस ज्ञान स्रोत को।
Thank you so much. I extend a very warm welcome to Honorable Governor Shri Ravi on behalf of the University of Lucknow, all the affiliated colleges and our dearest students. I now request the distinguished guest of the day to kindly light the lamp and formally inaugurate the program. दीप ज्योति परम ब्रह्म, दीप ज्योति जनार्दन, दीपो हरतु मे पापम, संध्या दीप नमोस्तुते. I fold my hands before the light that brings prosperity, auspiciousness, good health, abundance of wealth, and destruction of enemies' intellect. Thank you so much, sir. I now request Professor Ravi, Dean Faculty of Arts, to deliver the welcome address.
It is a proud moment for all of us to welcome His Excellency Governor of Tamil Nadu, Shri Ravi. There cannot be any person better than Shri Ravi ji, His Excellency Governor of Tamil Nadu, to deliver an academic lecture, V.S. Ram Memorial Lecture, and because he has also been earlier Director of Intelligence Bureau and also Governor of Meghalaya and Nagaland. His wide experience in the administrative assignments would help us to listen something special about the G20 lecture that is being organized in memory of V.S. Ram Memorial Lecture. We also welcome our Honorable Vice Chancellor, sir. He has always been active and keen in every academic activity. His active interest in the academic field has not only helped us to earn NAC A++ grade, but also helped us to achieve prestigious ranking in the Asian universities. We also welcome very senior teachers of the Department of Political Science, Professor S.K. Dwivedi, Professor D.K. Tiwari ji, and Shri, Professor R.K. Mishra ji, and all other faculty members of the university. We also welcome our students and all other teachers and all other media persons here to listen to this useful lecture from a person who has been actively engaged not only in academic activities but also in administrative activities. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, sir. Now I request Professor Manuka Khanna, Head Department of Political Science, to welcome the guests with a small token. Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Alok Kumar Rai, sir. Our distinguished guest for the day, Honorable Governor Tamil Nadu, Shri Ravi. Please give a big round of applause.
Sir, excuse me, please.
Thank you so much, sir. Now I request Professor Manuka Khanna, Head Department of Political Science, to introduce the V.S. Ram Memorial Endowment. Ma'am.
The Honorable Governor of Tamil Nadu, Shri Ravi ji, Honorable Vice Chancellor of University of Lucknow, Professor Alok Kumar Rai, Dean Faculty of Arts, Professor Arvind Avasthi, Deans and Heads of our university and most esteemed senior professors of our own department, students who have come from all over the city and have barely got place to sit. It is with a great pride that I'd like to introduce the event of today and the Professor V.S. Ram Memorial Endowment established in the Department of Political Science. Professor V.S. Ram has the distinction of being the first faculty member, the first professor, and the former head of the first independent department of political science in the country. Born in a very modest family of Andhra Pradesh, he had several challenges to face in his education, but ultimately his perseverance succeeded and he secured the BA Honours degree from Berkeley University, California, then moved on to do MA and PhD from the Harvard University. His thesis on the evolution of municipal government in India was one of the few, or maybe the first, advocacy of decentralization policy which could be followed in India. It is still available in the Harvard University among the rare manuscripts that they put on exhibition. His intellectual acumen can be judged by the fact that he was invited to London School of Economics, to the Harvard and Cambridge University quite often for lectures. He was also a part of the political team of League of Nations. He was also a member in the 1945 San Francisco meeting where the United Nations was established. He served the department as a lone faculty initially, then built up a team of esteemed persons like Professor V.K.N. Menon, Professor R.B. Das, Professor Masaldan, Professor G.N. Dhawan, and ultimately led the department from a new budding department into a big center of study for political science, and whatever departments that we see all over India are an offshoot of the University of Lucknow, which he initiated in 1922 after coming back from his studies abroad. He served the department till 1951. In Lucknow, we also have a street. In 1998, the worthy son of the distinguished father, Shri Ram, who was an Indian Foreign Services officer, established this Professor V.S. Ram Memorial Endowment in the department. The mandate was that we will be organizing 3 events mainly. That would be an intercollegiate debate, there would be this memorial lecture, and we would have a national seminar. The department has annually organized the debate, occasionally organized the seminar. We cannot say it was annual because of the lack of funds, but the lecture has been a continuous event every year except for the break during the corona times. And we have had illustrious speakers on political issues coming to us like Shri I.K. Gujral, we have had Shri P.C. Alexander, Shri P.A. Sangma, Saida Hamidji, and the like of luminaries coming here. Today we are very happy that we are adding a new star to our galaxy by inviting Honorable Governor of Tamil Nadu, Shri Ravi ji, who in himself combines the force of an academician, of a bureaucrat, of a politician, and of the esteemed position of governor, and has all the knowledge of intelligence in quotes the Intelligence Bureau. So we invite sir, and we are really proud to have you among our luminary speakers, sir. On behalf of the University of Lucknow, the Department of Political Science, the endowment, and personally myself, I welcome sir.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Now I request our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Alok Kumar Rai, to deliver the presidential address.
Most revered Honorable Governor of State of Tamil Nadu, Shri Ravi ji, our Dean Faculty of Arts, Professor Avasti, Head Department of Political Science, Professor Manuka Khanna, Professor Kamal Kumar ji, sitting on the dais, all the esteemed heads, deans, and other office bearers of the university, previous retired professors of Department of Political Science, very respected principals of our colleges, and my very, very dear students. It's a matter of great pleasure to host this event because after three and a half years we are hosting this program, and what a better way to start with than with the lecture of Honorable Shri Ravi ji. V.S. Ram Memorial Lecture, specially being delivered by a person who has accomplished contribution towards domestic and international policy framework. It is a matter of great pleasure for all of us, not just to receive him as a guest in this 102 years old institution, but also as part of this endowment lecture series. As Professor Manuka Khanna was elaborating on to what distinguished people we have had in this lecture series. This is another star in the galaxy and probably the most shining star, and you all would agree after listening to him. I welcome you also on behalf of University of Lucknow as Vice Chancellor and also on my personal behalf, because this is an institution with a history, legacy and heritage. 2 years back we celebrated our centennial celebration with a 7 days extravaganza, participated by almost all who's who of the country, including Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji. We recently attained the best possible grade in our NAT as A++. We got our ranking in Times Higher Education World University Ranking, in QS ranking, in NIRF ranking. We have one of the finest publication history with a Scopus H index of 106. And another very important thing is we have students from over 40 countries in our campus, and also we receive students from almost every single state and union territory in the country. As Professor Khanna said, this is the first ever political science department this university has got the privilege of establishing, and established by Professor Ram. The outcome of any department or any educational institution is of utmost importance. So this department has had very, very sincere and very, very serious and very, very significant contribution across all the 4 pillars of democracy. So this department has outcome which is in judiciary, in the politics, in administration, and in the today's very, very happening journalistic era. So I again congratulate this Department of Political Science to have been able to succeed in bringing Shri Ravi ji to deliver this. Now it is another very interesting to know that India has got its G20 presidency, and our chief guest of the day is going to speak on G20 presidency. Sir, I would like to bring to your kind knowledge that on 1st of November, when India got this G20 presidency, on 31st of October, we hosted the first ever university level program as part of Ministry of Education's initiative, and we were the first institution to have hosted this G20 conclave at University of Lucknow. I also very proudly but very humbly want to bring to your kind notice that we are the first institution in the country to have implemented National Education Policy 2020 in the academic, from the academic year 2020-21 itself. So our students are volunteering. There are a lot of activities of G20 are happening in the state of Uttar Pradesh, and our students are very, very active in this. As part of our expansion initiative, University of Lucknow also intends to start its first overseas campus, and we are in pursuit of starting our overseas campus with G20 country that we have already initiated. And we hope to come up with some concrete proposal this year itself. So we all are very, very eager to listen to you, sir. And once again, on behalf of this endowment, on behalf of Department of Political Science, on behalf of University of Lucknow, and also on my own behalf, I owe your presence to the furtherance of our academic pursuits as mark of your, in form of your lecture. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Now it's an honor and privilege to introduce the distinguished guest of the day, Honorable Governor Tamil Nadu, Shri R.N. Ravi. He has been a distinguished civil servant who joined the Indian Public Service in 1976. Briefly after being a journalist, he joined the service, and he has served in the premier intelligence services across the country, largely in theatres of insurgencies and violence, including Jammu and Kashmir, Northeast, Maoist-infected regions. He also specialized in the dynamics of human migration across South Asia and worked extensively on the political sociology of border population. He has played crucial roles in conflict resolutions in areas affected with ethnic insurgencies and brought several armed rebel groups into peace. He was the architect of India's international cooperation in counter-terrorism and intelligence sharing. I could not resist sharing that he holds the rare distinction of being the first incumbent constitutional head of a state to double up as a peace interlocutor in the country. He was also appointed as the chairman of Joint Intelligence Committee in the Prime Minister's office, whereas the head of the intelligence community He coordinated and guided the agencies to meet the national security needs of the country. He has served as the governor of Nepal, or Nagaland, so sorry. He has been appointed as the governor of Tamil Nadu and successfully continues to do so. So I request all of you to kindly extend a warm welcome and a big round of applause for the distinguished guest of the day. Thank you so much.
Most respected Vice Chancellor, Professor Alok Kumar Rai, Dean Faculty of Arts, Professor Arvind Awasthi, Head of the Department Political Science, Professor Manuka Khanna, Professor Kamal Kumar, distinguished heads of department, deans, senior professors, other intellectual leaders that this institution has produced, and those who are present today, my dear young friends, students, friends from the media. Namaskar to all of you. I'd like to thank the Vice Chancellor and the Political Science Department of Lucknow University for giving me this opportunity to be with you, share something that I believe with you, and interact with the young minds of the country. I am happy because it gives me an opportunity to talk to listen to, and to interact with the future of our country, youth who are present here. When I meet the youth, the students, it gives me an opportunity to understand and appreciate their dreams, their aspirations, and their anxieties. It inspires me, it informs me, it energizes me. And if the invitation comes to be with the students of an institution which is carrying the pride, legacy of over a century, not many institutions in our country have the privilege of such an ancient heritage. The desire gets doubled up. This lecture or this talk, I would like to say, is in memory of Professor B.S. Ram, a great mind, a great visionary. Over 100 years ago, he had the vision and the audacity to set up an independent department of political science. He did it at a time when the country was in a ferment. Resistance to British rule began the day one the British began occupying the Indian territory. got momentum, it got galvanized as a collective enterprise of the nation nearly after the First World War. Long period of invasion and colonization had weakened the political consciousness of our people. As a society, we were weakened, social institutions were degraded, dependence on the government had increased, and that to an exploitative government, which was hell-bent on destroying the identity and institution of this great country. In that backdrop, setting up a department of political science to plant the seed among our young minds, young leaders of the country, the ideas, the thoughts across the world in the domain of politics. It was essentially a very noble enterprise and in furtherance of our national freedom movement. When there is an event in the memory of such a great person, to whom on this occasion I pay my most humble tribute, and also to the worthy family members who instituted this memorial endowment, to see that the legacy, the memory of this great man continues. I extend my warmest greetings and best wishes to them. When I got the invite, I requested the Vice Chancellor, would he suggest what he would like me to talk of? And promptly came the response which I had anticipated, saying that the governor has a wide experience in security, national security domain, which is a fact. My lifetime has been devoted to the issues of national security, and so that was a very natural expectation. But then I thought that when I'm going to talk to and interact with our young minds in memory of this great man, and that's why I thought the president and the world order. Friends, when we talk about the world order, let's have a snapshot view of the situation prevailing in the world today. We know and we are conscious of numerous grave situations, numerous problems being faced by the world today, and some of these are existential in nature. Take the case of climate change, पर्यावरण की समस्या. We know that the planet Earth is heating up, temperature is rising steadily, polar ice caps are melting, glaciers are receding, forests are dwindling, rivers are drying up, and a curtain raiser of the impending crisis occasionally erupts in different parts of the world in terms of erratic behavior of the nature. We have all begun paying the prices in a small way, but the price, the big way, is not far away. Now this climate crisis, which threatens the world, the existence of the world, several island nations, they know that in a couple of decades they will be obliterated from the map of the world because the ocean level is rising. And we do not know what kind of disaster it would be, but it would be grievous and devastating, that much sense we have. This is happening because of excessive use of fossil fuels for energy. We all need energy, and excessive dependence on the fossil fuel. We also know that the soil surface is losing fertility. Productivity of the surface is declining fast due to excessive use of chemical fertilizers and pesticides. In our country, we have many examples. To illustrate, Punjab is one. Till the decade of 1980, Punjab was the leading agricultural producing country in the world, state in the world. They were the grain basket. Their average production was over 2 to 2.5 times greater than the national average. Today they have gone below the national average. Excessive use of chemical fertilizers and pesticides has eroded the fertility of the soil severely. This is happening across the world. This is a big problem, existential in nature. Look at the situation in the world. There are wars, small wars, big wars. Wars have been there in human society for a long, long time. So what is unique about the wars that are being fought today? It's unique because today the humans have far more destructive capability. There are several countries in the world, at least 9. Each one of them have got nuclear weapons capable to destroy the world many times over. One doesn't know what and when something goes wrong somewhere, and a big devastating situation will emerge, unimaginable. These are big wars, the threat of big wars. But the wars that used to happen in the past used to have limited impact. I'm talking about even the non-nuclear wars. Look at what's happened in Ukraine and Russia. The entire world has been affected by it. It has affected us. It has affected our economy. Reduction in supply of Russian oil to Europe. It led to the European countries desperately going out and buying coals from the rest of the world to save themselves, not only, but also impending winter, and the phrase used to be, winter is coming. That used to terrorize them. And when they went for larger scale buying of coals in Africa and other countries, Australia and all, the coal prices went down. It affected our industries. It made our cement far more expensive. There are many other consequences just to illustrate this here. So today wars are not local. War may be local, but impacts are global. Not only such wars, but there are many invisible wars being fought in almost most of the part of the world. Most part of the world. Terrorism. With the new technology, terrorism is not just a very localized affair. And these are played by the non-state actors. But some states also have started using it as an instrument of fulfilling their foreign policy objectives. So we have threat of devastating nuclear war. We are facing wars with its consequences, and we are also suffering wars which are highly debilitating and destructive. So wars of today are not like wars of yesterday. And these are existential in nature again. Take the case of global poverty. With the advancement of technology, science, increase in agricultural production, it has also led to great inequality. While in some parts of the world we have surplus food, there are a large number of people who are going hungry, those who are underfed, they are malnourished, a large part of humanity. And the world order that we have today, established post-Second World War, has not been able to address the problem of climate crisis, has not been able to address the threat of wars, dangerous and devastating war, has not been able to address the problem of poverty. They take the case of latest that the whole world suffered the pandemic, global pandemic. It didn't just spare anyone. Every country, everyone was affected by COVID-19. And at that point of time, when nobody knew the way out, nobody knew the nature of the beast, at that point of time, there were expectations that the countries, advanced countries, the developed countries, they would be coming to the rescue of the less fortunate. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. The developed countries, when they developed the vaccine, they looked at it as an opportunity to make money. The prices of vaccine went up. Large part of the world was unattended, uncared for. In that backdrop, it was India. And thanks to our Indian scientists, that when we developed our vaccine, we shared the vaccine free of cost. To the needy in over 150 countries. We gave them medicines. So the world we have today is incapable of, has proved utter failure in addressing such problems of global dimension like pandemic. They take the case of global commons. We know the countries have their territory. Countries have their territorial water. Countries have their exclusive economic zone, those who are literal. But beyond that, the ocean and the marine resources, asset and the wealth of the humanity. But what is happening today? The rich and powerful countries are exploiting those resources in global common for their own purpose. Look at this space, global commons like a space. Today, the rich and powerful countries are using this space primarily for their interest. And even some of them have gone to the extent of weaponizing the space. How to use a space for destructive purposes, creating problem in some other part of the world. Take the case of cyberspace. It remains yet ungoverned, unregulated, largely. The world has not come to any understanding, a common framework to make use of the global common resources or to regulate the global common space. In every field, the world order has failed. And not only failed, but to a large extent, many of these problems have been the product of this very global order. And look at this. What is this order that we have today? In the post-World War II, the victor countries, they got together and they decided to set and steer the course of human destiny. The 5 countries, all that they had was they were powerful. They were militarily powerful. Some of them put together not even half the population of our Uttar Pradesh. But they have the right to veto the decisions of the larger community. The present global order, the world order, is based on wealth and power. Now this wealth and power centric world order is unsustainable. Today, 2/3, we all know that 2/3 of the humanities, what is popularly called global south, is voiceless in international affairs. They are at the receiving end what the powerful decides. How and why such a global order has emerged and is continuing? If you look at it, yes, after the Second War, the victorious countries, they formed it. But over the times, over the decades, over seven decades, this order still is continuing. We know it is unsustainable, but still it is continuing. And why is it continuing? What are the ideological justifications or motivations that sustains this world order? If you look at it, then I would suggest there are 4 ideologies that are responsible for it. One is a theology. These are Western ideologies. पश्चिमी विचारधारा, 4 प्रमुख पश्चिमी विचारधारा आज की वैश्विक स्थिति के लिए जिम्मेवार हैं, ऐसा मैं मानता हूँ, और इसके ऊपर मैं आपको चर्चा करना चाहूँगा, आपको सुनना चाहूँगा। पहली तो थियोलॉजी, वेस्टर्न थियोलॉजी, वो ऐसी थियोलॉजी है जो कहती है, जिसे हम अंग्रेजी में एंथ्रोपोसेंट्रिक वर्ल्ड व्यू करते हैं। गॉड ने मनुष्य को क्रिएट किया, और मनुष्य को क्रिएट करने के बाद, निर्मित करने के बाद सृष्टि का निर्माण किया, और सृष्टि का निर्माण किया मनुष्य के भोग के लिए. God created humans and then created the world for the pleasure of the humans. This is Western theology. In this theology, humans are the masters of nature. They are at the center of creation. And when I am the master, I am at the center, and all creation has been for my pleasure. Of course, I have all the right, all the justification to use it the way I want, the way it pleases me. Excessive exploitation of earth, resources of earth, for the fulfillment of the pleasure of few, it has a root. It has a theological justification in this theology. It does not believe, as we believe in our country, that we are not the Lord and Master of creation. We are one element of creation. And this theology is responsible to a large extent for the global climate crisis that we are facing today. In the decade of 50s, 60s, 70s, we didn't talk much about climate change. There were people concerned. There were people who were seeing the danger coming. But still, that was not a discourse, the mainstream discourse. It was on the margin. पर्यावरण की चर्चा पर होती थी. यह हमारा केंद्र बिंदु नहीं था. उन दिनों में कुछ लोगों ने इसकी चिंता की, और उसमें एक प्रमुख व्यक्ति थे, प्रोफेसर लिन वाइट जूनियर. Professor Lynn White Jr. also was, incidentally, a professor of political science. In the 1967 or 66, I am forgetting the year, you can check it on the net, he wrote a very evocative piece. It was carried by the journal Atlanta. Historical roots of our ecological crisis. The ecological crisis which was impending, which world was going to face with a greater severity, its root, where was it? And there he highlighted that this worldview, anthropocentric worldview, that the world has been created for the pleasure of the humans, is largely responsible for destruction of the climate and responsible for the climate change. And it is difficult to argue with it. It's a fact. Another thought is, incidentally, I can see his name there on the top, Darwin, theory of natural selection. Darwin theory of natural selection. And strangely enough, it got the cloak of a scientific theory. And what does this theory say? Survival of the fittest. The destiny of the weak is to perish. Destiny of the strong is to prosper. You see this thought determining the behavior of most of the countries, Western countries, the countries which are at the helm of the world order today. A strong is to prosper, weak is to perish. Yes, a strong prospers and weak perishes, but that's the law of the jungle. When the evolution of life began, and when it evolved in various stages, to the plants, to the creatures, to the animals, to the humans, the consciousness has also evolved. And humans have something unique which others don't have, and that is compassion. And this compassion does not tell you or does not agree with the fact that the weak's destiny is to perish. No. The weak has to survive, it is our duty to take care of them. But this thought, theory of what they call natural selection, it gave natural justification, and to some extent even moral justification, not to care for those who are less deprived, those who are deprived or those who are less fortunate. Third thought process that has resulted in much of the problem today is dialectical materialism of Karl Marx. Karl Marx reduced the humans as a moving hydrocarbon. For him there was nothing emotion, nothing, everything was a chemical reaction. Dialectical materialism. Thesis, antithesis. Translated in social context, have and have-nots. The perpetual conflict between have and have-nots. It provided an intellectual justification for the perpetual conflict. Those who perceived have-nots, they thought it was necessity for them and it was their duty, they must go get into conflict. And who were the have-nots? It was difficult because the widest spectrum. You cannot divide the have and have-nots in a watershed compartment. There is a lot of in-between. Of course, when it comes to Karl Marx, we also know that he was one gentleman who hated Indian civilization. Utmost hatred for Indian civilization. And that was reflected in his essay, published in August 1853. Those of you who are interested, get on the internet, you will see it. In New York Daily Tribune. He wrote an essay, and thereafter he wrote subsequent many essays, almost 20 of them, but each carrying the same theme. And the theme was British Empire in India has two duties to perform. He said, theoretically I am opposed to imperialism, but in India it is a historical necessity. And so the essay goes on further. It says that the first duty of the British in India is total annihilation of Indian social order. Total annihilation of Indian social order, because a society that worships cows and monkeys have no business to survive. A society that subordinates the individual to the collectives and kills the potential of the sovereign individual to grow must be perished, must be annihilated. So the British Empire must totally annihilate the Indian social order. And the task number 2 was lay the foundation of Western material civilization. He was not apologetic, he didn't mince words. In all the essays, subsequent essays, he dwelt on this theme, which provided one another justification for British Empire to dig their heels further. Anyway, but his theory of dialectical materialism and perpetual conflict between have and have-nots has also perpetuated this situation. So, the climate, the perpetual conflict between human and the nature, Darwin's perpetual conflict between the people, weak, perish, strong to prosper, there will be conflict. Have and have nots in perpetual conflict. And the fourth is the social contract theory. Some people, we all know, you are all a student of political science, whatever, they got together, not together, they separately propounded. They propounded a theory that society is the product of a contract. Individuals got together and contracted the society into being. Now, inherent in that theory is the primary stakeholder in the contract is the individual. Sovereignty of the individual, subordination of the collective, minimum role of the collective. Largely it is the individual. The individual sovereignty and individual-centric world order. It has created a situation where we find there are many going on between the individual and the collective, be at the family level, be at the society level, be at a larger level. And those who believe in it, they perpetuate it in the name of individual sovereignty. We all know in our Indian system, each one of us are part of a larger, a collective. While we have our individual existence, individual space, but detached from the collective, there is no existence. It's like leaves of a tree. A tree has million leaves. No two leaves are alike, and yet beyond the tree, the leaf doesn't exist. A flower with 100 petals. No two petals are alike. Each petal is unique, but beyond the flower, the petal has no existence. There has to be balance between the collective and the individual, and in that balance, collective has a greater role. We respect the individual, but up to a limit. Now, these thought processes have perpetuated a thinking, and that those thinkings have led to the behavior and creation of institutions that have sustained the iniquitous world order that we have today. So, what is there for us? What India can do, and what India must do. And here comes the topic of the day, India's presidency of G20. You know, from long time, our seers, our rishis have shown us the path. Swami Vivekananda on multiple occasions, he has stated, and he dedicated his life to this cause. He saw the India which was spiritually rich but materially deprived, poor. West, especially at the time Europe, was materially prosperous but spiritually deprived. And this imbalance could not sustain the world. There had to be a mix of the development, the growth in science and technology, and also there has to be corresponding rise and resurgence in the consciousness of Bharatiya consciousness, Bharatiya darshan, Bharatiya जीवन दृष्टि. और भारतीय जीवन दर्शन है क्या? भारतीय जीवन दृष्टि जो भारतीय दर्शन से प्रेरित वो है क्या? दर्शन हमारा हजारों साल पुरानी सनातन संस्कृति, सनातन अध्यात्म है, जो वेदों के पीरियड से शुरू हुई, जिसमें हमें ये बताया गया। और ये कैसे लोग थे, कितना प्रचंड उनका चिंतन था कि उन्होंने उस समय इतनी बड़ी सोच निकाली, इतने बड़े सत्य का उजागर किया कि द होल क्रिएशन with numerous stunning diversity is all connected, is a part of a thing. The Creator permeates every element of creation, and all the numerous stunning manifestations that you see, which appear different, they are not actually different, they are diverse. They have got up with a formula to resolve the difference and brought them into diversity. And that is why thereafter the prayers that began was all reflective of this vision. When we all pray, Sarve bhavantu sukhina, Sarve santu niramaya, Sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukh bhag bhave. We pray for every being, not for us, not for humans, but every being. Let every being be happy, every being be healthy, every being be free of disease. We pray, Sahana bhavatu, Sahana bhunaktu, Sahaviryam karvavahe, Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvisavahe. Let us collectively work, togetherness. This is what Vasudhaiva भारतीय जीवन दृष्टि जो इस पर आधारित है, इसको जीती है, हर दिन जीती है, रोजमर्रा की जिंदगी। For us, when India chose Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam as a motto of G20 presidency, it's not a political slogan, it's not a diplomatic statement, it is just an expression of India's DNA. We have the vision. Now, Swami Vivekananda, he realized that this lesson of yours, this vision of yours, this darshan of yours, there will not be many takers unless you grow strong, unless you rise in terms of science and technology, unless you have material prosperity also. And so, he strongly advised and advocated a combination, a blend of the modern science and technology and our traditional Sanatan universal spirituality. स्वामी विवेकानंद स्वामी जी ने कहा था कि हमारा भारत ऐसा भारत चाहिए जिसकी नाड़ी और धमनी और नाड़ियां स्टील की हो और जिसका हृदय और मस्तिष्क करुणा, वेदांतिक दर्शन और करुणा से भरा हो. That kind of भारत was needed for Vishwakarma to save the world. This was echoed in his own words by Gurudev Tagore. Gurudev Tagore, he said, he called Bharat a divine dispensation. In one of his talks in US, when he went to America, he described it beautifully. He said, the soul of civilization is often as fuels as to keep it running. And to save it, this country, Bharat, which is a divine dispensation, has to rise up and save it. This was the vision of Rishi Aurobindo. You know, when 15th of August 1947, when the British left India, we became independent. Rishi Aurobindo wrote his 5 dreams on that very day. And he said that in the entire universe, Earth is the only evolutionary planet. Entire universe, Earth is the only planet where consciousness, the life has been evolving. And on this unique planet, Bharat is the only country where several thousand years ago, our rishis revealed the knowledge, the truth of oneness of creation. Oneness of creation. Rishi Aurobindo himself was very perturbed because in his lifetime he had seen 2 devastating world wars. He had also witnessed the unimaginable destructive power in human hand when nuclear weapons were dropped at Nagasaki and Hiroshima. Humans could go to that extent of destruction, unimaginable. And then he was agitated. He said, what was going to be the fate of humanity? Was it self-destruction? Because the world was divided, which is even today it is divided in all kinds of ism. Ye wad, wo wad. Capitalism, communism, socialism, democracy, various forms of democracy, dictatorship. Each one is conflict is at the throat of the other. And such a conflict-ridden world, equipped with such weapons of devastating destruction, the fate of humanity, was it self-destruction? He said no. After deliberations, he said no. The fate is greater evolution to the higher level. Because he said, consciousness, Shri Aurobindo's theory of evolution of consciousness, when consciousness creeps into inert, it becomes Jiv, Chetan. And when the consciousness further evolves, it gets into various forms of conscious equipped creatures. And when the consciousness evolves to a level where it can think and deliberate, Manushya comes. But this consciousness at this level is highly divided. It is influenced greatly by other concerns. It has to evolve to the super consciousness, where one sees the unity in the diversity. When standing here, I can see the several hundred of you sitting here. All of you are a reflection of me. You are no different. Now, Rishi Aurobindo said that equipped with this knowledge, this truth, it is the duty of Bharat to save the world, to let the humanity, to facilitate the humanity to evolve to the next level of consciousness and the last level of consciousness, that is super consciousness. All our rishis, all our seers have indicated this. It is Bharat's divine mandate. It is our duty to save the world. This was the year. But how do we do it? We have to be strong. Sukraniti, long ago, says, Balino vasgaha sarve durbalasya cha satruva. If you are weak, you are surrounded by enemies. If you are strong, you have friends around. We have to be strong. We have to grow. We have to grow in science and technology. We have to grow economically. We have to grow materially. But at the same time, we also have to go through our spiritual resurgence. What is the true identity of Bharat? Now is this, when G20 presidency came to Bharat, presidency goes to every country, each of the 20 members in rotation they get the president. पांचवें नहीं, उपस्था नहीं। भारत के बारे में इस तरह की भ्रांतियां हैं विश्व में, और इसका कारण भी है क्योंकि ये लंबे अरसे की colonization, invasion, it has weakened us severely. It has weakened our sense of self-identity. It has weakened our sense of self-pride. It has weakened all our institutions. And the image which was deliberately propagated in the world, all the negative images, those images are still there lingering in the rest of the world. Many of you could be aware that before the British came, before the colonization began, they came for trading 1600. But in the middle of 18th century, when they began colonizing this country, at that point of time, Indian economy was the largest economy in the world. We accounted for nearly 28 to 30% of the global GDP. Those of you who have not seen it, who are not aware, I would suggest, go on the internet. That is the beauty of internet. You just punch global economy, world economy, a millennial perspective. World economy, a millennial perspective. This was commissioned by these OECD countries, rich countries, powerful countries. 200 years, America, that was in 1970, became rich in last 200 years. America became rich in last 100 years. Before that, India was the richest country in the world. And they found it difficult to believe. And they commissioned this study. And that study report, the sum of it is there available on the internet, which tells you right from the first century what was the global economy position, which country was where. There was no Europe, there was no America anywhere until 16th century, 17th century. It was India and China. India was invariably leading, except for one century, where we fell slightly, but India again overtook. India was the largest economy. But then it was destroyed. And destroyed deliberately. You know, I'm tempted to share and provoke you. Some of you would be aware of it. When British began colonizing this area after the Battle of Plassey, came to the British government. And what provoked the question was a letter of Robert Clive. You know that Robert Clive was the guy who was the British commander who fought then Nawab in the Battle of Plassey, defeated and conquered Bengal. Having conquered the territory, he wrote a letter trading well for the last 150 years. But now we have begun conquering territory. And there is a possibility that we will conquer more. Administering a territory is not something for the trading company. We are a merchant company. So this responsibility of administering the conquered territory should be done by the British government. And that letter was seriously debated by the British government. And at that point of time, because there were people for, there were people against. But what tilted the balance was a recommendation of Professor Adam Ferguson. Professor Adam Ferguson was a professor of political science and theology in Edinburgh University. You know, at the time there were three centers of learning: Oxford, Cambridge and Edinburgh. He was advisor to the British government on colonial affairs, because British had begun colonizing long before. They had colonized North America before they started colonizing India. So they had experience of colonizing territories. And so they had a full-fledged wing of advising on colonial affairs, which was headed by Professor Adam Ferguson. In his letter, he said, no, British government should not listen to Robert Clive. You should not take over the administration. Why? His argument was that British experience of colonizing America cannot be replicated in India. Because we all know what they did in America. America, when they went, they annihilated the local population, indigenous people. Not only through wars, largely through spreading disease and pestilence. With the smallpox infested, blankets were sent to the tribal villages, and the people died in millions. It was done that way, it was colonized that way, and then they settled, and then they developed. That is what they did wherever they went. In Australia, they did the same thing. Canada, they did the same thing. They said, Ferguson said, you cannot do that in India for two reasons. One, India is a large population. It would not be possible to annihilate such a large population. Not only that, there may be numerous Rajas and Maharajas in India, but Indian society is united. At the social level, at the cultural level, what happens in one part of the country impacts the other part. They are integrated, and that was a fact. Everyone, irrespective of which king or which kingdom they passed through, people used to move, they traveled for pilgrimage, traveled for education, traveled for trade. They were not concerned about who were the rulers, who were the kings. So this unity, the social and cultural unity of this country, they said it is formidable, it would not be replicate the American experience. So please don't go for that. It is not possible. Then what? Then he said, colonization of India is ruled out. Only thing is how to make your empire as enduring as possible. He said the objective of the British Empire should be to, I'm quoting his words, transfer of as much wealth from India as speedily as possible. Transfer of as much wealth from India as so long you continue doing it for the long and take the decision. And then further he says, Adam Ferguson further says, now if the British government takes over the administration, the British civil servant, bound by the rules and regulations, they will raise many objections. Every exploitation, every transfer of wealth. Because he says that a speedy transfer of wealth will require frequent bending and breaking of rules. These are his words. Frequent bending and breaking of rules. If the British government takes over, servants of the crown will keep raising objections. They will keep quoting rules. We all know. We all experience, those who are on the other side of the government, And even those who are in the government will realize how many rules and regulations are there and how difficult. They say no, they will not allow you. So, if the company does and the government looks the other way, they can do it with a greater flexibility. So run the company by remote. And that is where they created a division in the government on affairs of India. And the British Prime Minister became the president of that body, but running the company from behind. And then they said, to make it enduring, first to destroy the sense of selfhood of India. And then, a student of political science, you would be studying, there's John Stuart Mill. We all know. But who was his father? And what did he do? James Mill. And what did James Mill do? James Mill, too, he was a missionary. He was commissioned to write the history of India. And James Mill, without visiting India, he wrote 5 volumes of history of British India. And there he wrote everything bad about India. Everything bad about it. And those books became the book of reference for all the British civil servants who were selected. Before coming to India, they had to pass a test, they had to read the books. Subsequently, these books also became textbook in our colleges. If you read about it, you feel, as an Indian, you feel so hurt, so agitated. Destroy the history. Destroy the education system. They did. They also commissioned a study in all the 3 presidencies, Bengal, Bombay, and Madras, on the status of indigenous education. Those reports are there. You see what kind of education system we had. They destroyed it. So having done all, they destroyed our sense of selfhood, sense of pride, sense of who we were. And so it becomes difficult for us to believe. Everybody tells us that we are inheritor of a very, very proud legacy in every domain. And so, when we live in our day-to-day life, we live in perfect harmony with nature. Let the world come and see it. Let the world come and also see that today the modern India, the rising India, ubharta hua naya Bharat, a confident India, a resolute India, an India which is moving forward with a sense of destiny. And the destiny is, in the next 25 years, by 2047, when the country celebrates centenary of independence, India must be an Atmanirbhar Bharat, must be the leader of the world, the Vishwa. And if you look at all around, we see revolutionary transformations happening. Some people have not yet appreciated fully how this transformation is happening. After the British left, subsequent governments, they were also well-meaning people. The leaders were well-meaning. They wanted to do good to the people. They wanted to remove poverty. They wanted to remove sickness. They wanted to educate our people. They wanted to build roads, provide electricity. And they did. They achieved milestones. But then, 7 decades later, India remained a country with a dubious distinction of hosting the largest number of illiterate, poor, sick. Why? It's because our approach was addressing the problem in segments. While we kept addressing the problem of health, building hospitals, while we also tried to address the problem of education by building education institutions, schools and colleges, providing electricity by generating more powers and taking transmission lines. But with the 5-year planning and we built so many colleges, so many schools, so many hospitals, so much kilowatt or megawatt of power. We address the problem in segments. Problems kept multiplying. While we had kept addressing the problem also began multiplying, and we remained sick, uneducated, poor, unconnected, in darkness. The transformation that has happened with the new leadership of the Prime Minister Narendra Modi is, look at the problem holistically. The problem of health has to be addressed in total. It cannot be in segments that, okay, we'll take care of health of such people, so many people are not there, to others to be later. No, it has to be addressed. So there has to be multi-pronged approach. Modern medicine. Medical colleges in each district. A super specialty hospitals in every block. Create the number of doctors, create the number of supporting staff to match the needs of this country. Making generic medicines available through Jan Aushadhi Kendra. In 2014, we had hardly less than 400 Jan Aushadhi Kendra. Today, we have 10,000 generic medicine at the worst cost of 1/10 in all parts of the country. So the people, for those who cannot afford, they can have access to quality medicine, generic. Providing health insurance through Ayushman Bharat to every Indian who qualifies below that poverty line. So whether the person is in Tamil Nadu or Tripura, doesn't make a difference. Everyone has access to Ayushman Bharat. Alternative medicines, Indian alternative. We have a very rich tradition of medicine. And today the world is coming to accept it. From less than 2 billion, our indigenous medicine market has gone up to almost 18 billion. Greater thrust on our Indian system of medicine, Indian system of treatment. Alternative that we had. There is a lot of merit. We have survived, we have lived for hundreds and thousands of years with this. It has a rich legacy, rich experience. We have no reason to deprecate it. It is helping. And in the COVID period, people realized across the world the worth of our Indian medicine system. Holistic, what I'm trying to say is attack the problem holistically. Don't approach the problem in peace. Education. This change that we are seeing, or which are being implemented through different policies, are born of a vision. The vision is, this Bharat is a family. When we talk about Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, we must have a sense that Bharat itself is a kutumbam, is a family. Unfortunately, politics having course our day to day, division, estates which were created for administrative convenience, not even 100 years old. Identity, creating a political identity and destroying the sense of unity of this country. As a result, it led to imbalanced growth. Some states developed, some states were called Bimari. And even the states which were developed, there were sub-regional imbalances. Huge imbalance. No. Looking at the country as a family. And when you look at the country as a family, you cannot pick and choose to provide education, health, nutrition to your family members. You will let us strive to provide to every member of your family. That is the thought that goes into it. And the second is harnessing the strength of the society, the people. You know, the European states, and that is unfortunately our Indian state also after independence, it got into that. It bore entire development, it became a state-centric. Inherent strength of the society was forgotten. Every welfare, every scheme has to come from the government. I remember in my childhood, I come from adjacent state, Bihar. I had my high school. I did my high schooling from my village. In every year, before the onset of monsoon, the village pond, entire village gets together, from each house carry a spade and used to de-silt the pond. I have participated in that. Collectively we did. We never looked at government or anyone. To take the waters from the canal to the tributaries, which runs several kilometers to the field. Before the onset of monsoon, the farming season, every house, members from every house got together, and I participated. Carrying the implements, we cleaned the tributary so that the water is not wasted, water goes to the field. Today, if a small ditch appears in the village road, write a petition to the local body. This excessive dependence on government, a client-patron relationship, that has destroyed. That doesn't let this country we need to create conducive environment where that strength is unleashed and harnessed. And that we see today. In 2014, we had less than 400 startups in our country. Today we have more than 100,000 startups. Who are they? People like you. People like you. Next week, I am going to felicitate, you must be aware of, about 30 school children from Tamil Nadu. Launched 75 satellites. The school children today are building satellites. I am going to felicitate in Chennai Rajbhavan 70 odd students who from Tamil Nadu, those who were part of it. Look at the strength of this. We see, when I go to the IIT Madras students, wonderful things. Building launch vehicles at far lesser cost, far more economical than what is there in the market, with a greater efficiency and capacity. Miracles is happening. And it's happening because our youth today, our young people today are willing to take the risk. They are confident to try something new. And if fail, try again. Let not the failure defeat you. And that is the result we see today. If today, from nowhere, we are among the top 3 fastest growing startup ecosystem in the world, it is because of our people's strength, our young men and women are there. Do you think it was possible for the government to successfully conduct the sanitation drive, to build toilets in every houses? Not possible. It wasn't just not possible for government. But today, we are open defecation-free country because of mass participation, involvement of the people. So the mantra that Prime Minister always say, Jan Bhagidari, Jan Andolan, not the government. I heard in the speech before that this university has the distinction and the prestige of national review, but we are trying in that situation. We have successfully implemented. I congratulate you for that. But who made this national education policy? Was it made by the government? No. Several 100,000 people from the society, from different domain experts, from academia, from industry, from various fields. They contributed their wisdom. Their distillation of that came as a national education policy. It was beyond the capacity of the government and government officials to draft such a revolutionary, far-sighted, futuristic education policy. Not possible. It has been possible because of this. So, the change that is happening today is the change in the style of the governance that is framing the policy and implementing the policy. In framing the policy, expand, go to the society, go to the people, draw their wisdom, go to the society, people, involve them. And that is what is bringing about this transformation. Until some years ago, this country was at the margin of world affairs. Nobody took us seriously. Is it the case today? No. When the Prime Minister of India speaks, the whole world listens and listens attentively. Look at the field of the climate, green energy. Whole world has been talking about climate, but those who are responsible for it are least interested in addressing it because they don't want. Because they believe it, okay, it is for the lessers, teach the lessons to the less developed countries deprived. They have a right. They keep giving us sermons. But what India is doing and what India has done, India took a bold decision to move away from carbon in the field of energy. And we set a very ambitious target, which seemed ambitious at one point of time, and in fact unachievable to many, that by 2030, 50% of our energy needs will be met by renewable energy. And by 2070, we will be zero carbon. No country in the world has a guts. And when we said that by 2030 we will be 50% of our energy needs, we have already reached 40% target. 40% of our energy is non-carbon. We tapped into the solar energy. The sun, we realized we have worshipped suns for thousands of years. The sun god doesn't charge you and there is no limit on the energy that he provides. And when in 2015, the Prime Minister mooted the idea of International Solar Alliance, they were all skeptics around. Very few countries like France came along. And when 2016, we laid the foundation of International Solar Alliance in National Capital Territory of Delhi, Gurgaon, Gurugram. At the time, there were not many takers. Today, more than 100 countries, they are in line to join the alliance. Our solar energy production is increasing by the day. Renewable energy from all sources, solar, bio, of course hydro we have been doing, through ethanol. Now this ethanol blending, when we set the target of 10% ethanol, that all our fuels will have 10% of ethanol, which is grown in the farm, people thought it was too ambitious. We achieved it long before, and we are now heading towards E20, what we call, we will have 20% of all our fuels will be blended with ethanol, carbon free. India, with a determination, is moving forward to show the world we are walking the talk. Clean energy. And if, as such a of nearly 140 crores. Now we are being told that we are shortly going to be perhaps the most populous country in the world. If we can successfully conduct the experiment, it is a lesson for the world. So let the countries of the G20 come and see what India is, how India is changing, how India is transforming. the story of India must go out to the rest of the world. The wrong perceptions that the world has towards India has to be dispelled. And the world that is looking towards India with expectations to sow the light, to sow the way, they must develop the confidence that yes, India has the capacity. India can do it. It's also G20 presidency. Unlike in the past, any feature, the old model, G20 presidency had to come, it came. Some events would have been organized in Delhi, maybe Bombay, maybe Mumbai, commercial capital, or maybe one or two tourist destinations like Goa. That's what we held and celebrated in all parts of the country, howsoever small a state may be, even there. And there, all segments of the society, be it a student, be it youth, be it entrepreneurs, be it women, be it industry, let people culture. Let all come, at different forums and tell the world, this is what we are, this is who we are, and this is what we are doing. Mass movement, G20 is becoming a mass movement. This is also to educate our own people. Our people, for earlier about the country G20, if you ask earlier, people would have some students preparing for some competitive examination would read what is G20. No longer the case. Many people know that because the events have been organized. Exposure has been made. So educate the people. Let them prepare the people also for the greater responsibility. The greater responsibility that this country has in the days to come for the whole world to fulfill its obligation to the world, what was imagined by our rishis, articulated by Swami Vivekananda, Gurudev Tagore, Rishi Aurobindo. Those dreams to be fulfilled, we have to involve the people. This is an opportunity to tell the world who we are and what we are doing. Show them the confidence that we have to discharge our responsibility. The commitment that we have towards and to tell our world. And this energized people will make this country an Atmanirbhar Bharat, a Bharat which is capable of discharging its international obligation. विश्व कल्याण की जो हमारी जिम्मेवारी है, जो हमारे ऊपर ये कर्तव्य है, उस कर्तव्य को हम सही से पालन कर पाए. Thank you very much for listening to the lesson.
Thank you so much, sir. Please be seated. I request the audience to remain seated. Sir, our students have been enthusiastically and eagerly waiting for the interactive session.
I'd be happy. I have not come here to deliver a sermon. I told you that I like to hear the students, the young people, what are they thinking? Shoot any questions that you feel like. Don't feel shy of it. And don't look at your watch. Ask questions. I am here.
Those who are willing to ask questions may raise their hands. Our volunteers will reach out to you and then you could pose your questions.
Good afternoon, sir. Sir, I'm a master's student, and my question is, sir, there is a clear over-representation of European states in G20. So, how we do see India's roles in creating more space for developing nations in G20 forum, except inviting states like Egypt is there, Netherlands is there?
Thank you. First of all, we know that this G20, we know it is a group of 20 countries. In number, they may be just 20, but they are among the most influential countries in the world. They account for almost more than 85 to 90% of the global GDP. In many ways, they are far more effective and influential than the United Nations. If we can, and we must, influence the thought process of these 20 countries, because that at the conclusion of our presidency, the heads of the government will meet, and to which recommendations of various engagements group will be submitted. This will be deliberated. They will discuss, they will be compelled to discuss what we have recommended. They may or may not accept everything. But it's an opportunity for us to tell them what we feel like, what in all engagement groups. If we can influence them and associate countries from whom the peoples have come. Yes, larger the participation is good, but it's representing about more than 190 countries. But today we know how emasculated UN is. If you wish to change the world, if you wish to change the world for the good of humanity, then we must influence the G20 countries. So while participation by larger number of countries is good and we should aim at, but our core is to influence these people. If they can come to a formulation, agreeable formulation, policy formulation at the end of our presidency, which helps in making this world more equitable, more sustainable, then it will work. So that remains, larger participation is good, desirable, but this participation in itself is strong enough, influential enough. If we can do it, I think we would have achieved our ambition, our aim. Thank you.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Tanay. I'm a research scholar with the Department of Political Science. So, recently India has reflected a rather poor performance in certain international journals. I want to know, how fair do you deem these reports and journals? And will
in my talk I told you that the world, and when I say world means Europe-centric world, Europe and the West, they have a notion of India. They have difficulty in accepting our problems, not that we are free of the problems. We have many milestones to achieve, our target, our destiny. The tendency that we have noticed, especially in the international publications, Western publications, and of course Chinese publications, for obvious reasons, we don't blame them for that. They don't like to, there is a huge prejudice. You know, the question is, when you look at a glass of water, is it half filled or half empty? If I keep talking about half empty, it remains half empty. But the fact is, it is half full also. The story of New India, the rising India, the new India that is emerging in the last few years, is not yet fully told. It is also our issue. We also need to articulate. You know, there was a beautiful article, well-researched article which came recently. That narrative in a democracy, that somehow when, you know, that now with the latest tools, whatever in all the languages, when the people express their views, they do the assessment through technology, and there is a greater criticism. The countries, democracies across the world have been rated. There is a greater disaffection of people. The popular disaffection has been reflected mostly in the popular sentiment, whereas China has been coming up very well. No, it's a question of managing the narrative. If we have to convey our story to the world, we must also do it. We must do it effectively and know the narrative how to do it. And in that process, G20 is essentially, as I said, to show to the world. G20 we expected and we expect. Over 100,000 delegates from the member countries and associate countries to come India, visit this country and see the different parts of it. Engage with different sections of our population, see for themselves. So, it is in a way to change the narrative about India. Today, perception in the world about Indian women, let us say, is highly uncharitable. We ourselves had the shameful distinction of in having a very skewed gender demography. For every 1,000 men, we had hardly about 950 women. Not that women were not born, but we know how the women went missing. Today, though the latest census data is not yet out, but all the sample surveys have revealed that the centuries of gender inequality, gender imbalance has been addressed. Today, we have, as the sample data shows, perhaps more number of women in the country than men. In Tamil Nadu, my own state, where I got the number, when the voter list was updated recently, electoral rolls were updated. In Tamil Nadu, we have achieved the distinction of having about 15,000 more women electors than the men. Now this women number increasing. India is a land where women are killed, feticide, all this happen. We tell the world that is not the case. The new India is the India where our women are marching ahead. They are flying the bombers. There is no bastion. Military was the last which has been opened to our women. So every field to tell the story of New India, it is. And in terms of measuring who we are, we must develop our own metric. We don't have to get measured by the West. There is a tendency every time, if we get a recognition from the West, if a paper, research paper has got appreciation from the West, it is valued. I think we have to create our own standards, our own. हमें अपना खुद मानक अपना तैयार करना पड़ेगा. हम दूसरे जब तक हमको जज करते रहेंगे, हमारी दशा ऐसी ही रहेगी. हमें खुद अपना बनाना होगा. Thank you. No issue. No. Louder, please. No.
So I'm studying currently here. So I have a question. In the process of globalization and clash of culture, how would be the G20 summit under the leadership of India, how would be effective for the Central Asia's country?
Thank you for it. You know, the clash of culture, clash of civilization, all these are happening with the ideas and ideologies coming in the West. And when Ivy League colleges produce something, the way we accept it and start repeating it is amazing. When we talk about clash of civilization, this is a Western perspective again, where, and here I am going to all those things which I said, A theology which is anthropocentric theology. Humans are at the center of creation and not the nature is at the service of humanity. When you talk about the Western civilization, it is a civilization based on weak is to perish, strong is to prosper. It's a civilization which talks about, ideologically talks about the conflict between the rich and the poor. It talks about sovereignty of the individual, absolute sovereignty of the individual. Now, a civilization based on this is unsustainable. They are clashing among themselves. And they are also trying to clash with us because of lack of understanding. Because in Indian civilization, there is no other. It is the most inclusive. There is no concept of other. If the moment I start treating someone as other, I cease to be an Indian. I cease to be committed to my own civilization. When we talk about the unity of creation, when we talk about the universal oneness, when we talk about that we are all the different the people in different parts of the country, parts of the world, we are all like leaves on a tree or petals of a flower. There is no class, there is oneness. When we talk about living in harmony with the nature, we address the problem of what we are facing today, the globe is facing today, with the excessive exploitation of the earth. So, our civilization is comprehensive. It is not inward looking. It doesn't say that either you are with me or you are against me. There is no concept of you and I, it is the concept of us. That is what is reflected in the Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. And like any other part of the world, Central Asia, with which we had a very good relation, even today we have very good relation. We need to understand at that level. Today we are measuring every development from these ideologies and this theology. We need to, the world has to appreciate and has to come around. There is no alternative. The world is heading towards a disaster, inevitable disaster. The only way to prevent is this universal humanity, which is the civilization and philosophy of India, has to be appreciated duly. And people have to, because in here, we do not look at the poor and weep with contempt. We do not look at the objects around as an object for my pleasure. We seek compassion, connection. So, as far as the class of civilization is concerned, then we have to be firm in our Indian civilization, Indian culture. We have to be proud of it. And for my friends, other friends here, those Indian friends, I would like to say, I would like to urge you. Our Constitution of India, the Article 1 of the Constitution of India tells India, that is Bharat. What is Bharat? Have you tried to understand Bharat? Unfortunately, the difference between the present and the previous regimes in the country also has been in the difference in the way we look at the country. India might have been born at some point of time. Bharat is a thousands of year old civilization. Bharat is, many people, when I talk about it, when I say, people ask me, and some of them from the political science background and others, Mr. Governor, tell me who was the king who ruled this country at one point of time? The entire country? No, nobody. No country, no ruler ruled. But the fallacy lies that, unlike the European states, which were built by Bahubalis, by the ruler with a strong army, capturing a territory, consolidating it, and making it. And that is how when the ruler dies, dynasty sort of disappears, country also disappears. This is what happened to great countries like, empires like Roman and all. India was not built by any ruler, not built by any Raja or Bahubali. India was built by our Rishi and sages from the time of Vedic period, several thousand years ago, with this awareness that we are all one nation. And you know, again, I do not know whether Lucknow University Law College will teach, but many of the law colleges, we don't teach our students. When the Constitution of India was drafted and presented to the Constituent Assembly, majority of members rejected it. They said, this constitution talks about things which are neutral in nature, space neutral. Fundamental rights, well, every individual, any part of the world must have the fundamental rights. What is so new about India? When you talk about a state and union, wherever there is a federal system, you have a state and union. You have a division of power between a state and union. You have a system of taxation and devolution of taxation with the states and union. You have a tripod, legislature, executive, judiciary, anywhere. When there is a dispute, how to resolve it? That's there. Where is Bharat in it? It was that opposition and rejection from the members of the Constituent Assembly that led to the introduction of Part 4A of the Constitution, that is, Directive Principles of State Policy, where we talk about villages, where we talk about banning the cow slaughter. We talk about all those things which carry the civilizational value of Bharat, identity of Bharat. And not only that, having drafted the Constitution, a renowned artist, Nandalal Bose of Santiniketan, and his team were commissioned to give a civilizational, to depict pictorial depiction of the civilizational evolution of Bharat. And the great Nandalal Bose and his team did an excellent work. And what is the first painting in the Constitution? The first painting in the Constitution is of a Gurukula, Vedic Gurukula, where the Rishi is teaching, the students are learning, cows are grazing. That was the beginning of civilization of Bharat. When it came to fundamental rights chapter, what is the painting there? The painting there is Sri Rama's Raja Abhishekam. He comes, he takes over, Ramarajya. Everyone equal, no discrimination, no fear. Civilizational journey of Bharat who is depicted. Unfortunately, our law students are unaware of it. In one of my meetings when I had gone to address the judges of our Madras High Court, one judge said, some judges said, sir, why don't you go and teach the students of law? Let them be aware of it. What is Bharat? So, I would urge you all to understand what is Bharat. And then you will appreciate the beauty of it, the inner beauty of it, its inner strength of it, and then you will see your moral ground to show the light to the rest of the world. Thank you. Next question.
Thank you so much, sir.
प्रणाम सर। सर सर्वप्रथम तो मैं आपका बहुत बहुत आभारी हूँ कि आपने हमें इतना समय दिया और इसके लिए मैं आपका हृदय से आभार व्यक्त करता हूँ। सर मेरा प्रश्न जो है वो ये है कि आज हमारे चाइना से बहुत से विवाद हैं। अगर हम बॉर्डर्स पे देखें तो बहुत से विवाद हैं और उसके बाद भी हम चाइना से इतना ज़्यादा बिलियंस में ट्रेड करते हैं, तो क्या हम इसे कह सकते हैं कि ये हमारी डिपेंडेंसी है चाइना के ऊपर? और सर सेकेंड एक क्वेश्चन ये कि जो आपने कहा था सनातन संस्कृति जो भारत की है, एज ए यूथ हम कैसे सर उस संस्कृति को प्रमोट और प्रॉस्पर कर सकते हैं? थैंक यू वेरी मच।
देखिए चाइना, देखिए कोई एक चीज प्लीज बैठ जाइए, हम हर क्षेत्र में जो हमारा परिवर्तन जो हम देख रहे हैं, एक क्रांतिकारी परिवर्तन को लाने के लिए और खास करके सुरक्षा के क्षेत्र में तीन चीजें बड़ी आवश्यक है। तीन चीजें, पहली आत्मबोध, हम क्या है, हम क्या है मतलब भारत क्या है, भारत की शक्ति क्या है, इसका अंतर्निहित ताकत क्या है, आत्मबोध, हम कौन हैं। दूसरी आत्मशक्ति। जब हम आत्मशक्ति की ये बात कर रहे हैं तो अंतर्निहित ताकत के साथ साथ हमारी बाह्य ताकत कितनी है, हमारी मिलिट्री स्ट्रेंथ कितनी है, हमारे अदर स्ट्रेंथ, इकोनॉमिक स्ट्रेंथ कितनी है, इन सबको भी हम देखते हैं, हमारी शक्ति। और तीसरी चीज शत्रुबोध, कौन हमारा शत्रु है। दुर्भाग्यवश हम तीनों से वंचित रहे। हमने भारत को एक भूगोल के रूप में देखा, अभी तक लंबे अरसे तक भारत को हमने एक भूगोल के रूप में देखा, क्योंकि यही दृष्टिकोण अंग्रेजों ने हमें दिया था। जब आज़ादी नज़दीक आ गई और इतने सारे देश के अंदर में इतने सारे राजे रजवाड़े थे, और जब अंग्रेजों ने डिसाइड किया कि भारत को नष्ट करना ही है, तो उन्होंने ऐसा एक अपने पार्लियामेंट में कानून पास किया, इंडिया इंडिपेंडेंस एक्ट 1947, इंडिपेंडेंस ऑफ इंडिया एक्ट 1947, एंड दूसरा एक्ट था गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया एक्ट 1935 एज अमेंडेड इन 1947। इन दोनों के तहत उन्होंने कहा कि ब्रिटिश टेरिटरी जो एडमिनिस्ट्रेट है वो तो आज़ाद हो गया, जो स्टेट्स हैं राजा रजवाड़े वो स्वच्छंद हो गए, उनके ऊपर भी मेरी पारामाउंसी खत्म हो गई। अब उनकी मर्जी है, वो चाहे तो आज़ाद रहें या फिर भारत या पाकिस्तान में मिल जाए। तो उन्होंने ऐसी बुनियाद कर छोड़ी थी कि भारत के अंदर में 600 से अधिक अलग अलग देश रहेंगे। और जब ये बात अंग्रेजों लंदन में डिस्कशन होने लगी तो चर्चिल, जो भारत को बहुत हेय दृष्टि से देखता था, उसने कहा, व्हाट इज देयर टू वरी? इंडिया इज ए जियोग्राफिक expression like equator. Dissect it into 1,000 pieces, it doesn't matter. India is just a geographic expression. एक भूगोल है बात, टुकड़े कर दो कोई फर्क नहीं। Thanks to Sardar Patel that we don't have a situation. Imagine today what would have been this country like. It's a moth-eaten country. In भारत के अंदर में 560 से अधिक स्वतंत्र देश बचे हुए हैं। ये भूगोल की दृष्टि हमारी जमी रही, और यह परिणाम हुआ जब चीन तिब्बत में आया और तिब्बत में घुस करके, पहले तो जब तिब्बत में घुसा तो तिब्बत हमारे साथ उसका हजारों साल का सांस्कृतिक संबंध है, हमने मुंह मोड़ दिया। तिब्बत से हमारा इतना संबंध था, व्यापारिक संबंध था, सांस्कृतिक संबंध था। हमने चीन को अलाउ किया कि आप कर दो जो करना है, हम मुक्त हो गए। जब चीन ने आगे बढ़ा और जब हमारी जमीन को लेना शुरू किया, और जब अक्साई चीन 30,000 स्क्वायर किलोमीटर की क्षेत्र जब उसने ले लिया, उसे सर्वप्रथम हम उसको छिपा कर रखे देश के साथ। और जब ये बात पार्लियामेंट में आई, लोगों के सामने आई, और जब इस पर पार्लियामेंट में विवाद हुआ, तो उस समय के हमारे प्रधानमंत्री, तत्कालीन प्रधानमंत्री ने क्या कहा था, ये भी सोचने वाली बात है। और उससे यह बात स्पष्ट होती है कि भारत के प्रति उन लोगों का दृष्टिकोण था। तत्कालीन प्रधानमंत्री ने कहा, वो अक्साई चीन का एरिया, it's a rocky desert, not a blade of grass goes there. Not a blade of grass grows there. मतलब भूगोल का ये टुकड़ा, अनप्रोडक्टिव टुकड़ा अगर चला गया, चीन ने ले लिया, तो हमें इस पर ज्यादा दुखी होने की आवश्यकता नहीं है। यह भारत को भूगोल के दृष्टि से देखने का यह एक पहलू है, अनेकों पहलू हैं जो भूगोल के दृष्टिकोण से देखने के परिणाम हमें भुगतने पड़ रहे हैं आज। और उसी रॉकी डेजर्ट में जब 2020 में जब चीनी सैनिक आगे बढ़े गलवान में, तो हम अपने हमारे 20 भारतीय जवान शहीद हुए उस जमीन को बचाने के लिए उन्हें पीछे ढकेलेंगे। वो भूगोल वैसा ही था जो अक्साई चीन का भूगोल था। जब आप इसको एक बॉडी, एक ऑर्गेनिक मानते हो, भारत को एक माता के दृष्टिकोण से देखते हो कि एक ऑर्गेनिक एंटिटी है, तो आप अपने शरीर का किसी भी हिस्से को आप उससे आप कॉम्प्रोमाइज नहीं करते। जब चीन के प्रधानमंत्री, चीन के प्रेसिडेंट 2000 जब आए थे 14 में, प्रधानमंत्री जब शुरू में प्रधानमंत्री मोदी ने जब कार्यभार ग्रहण किया था, तो शी जिनपिंग आए थे, अहमदाबाद में झूले झूल रहे थे नर्मदा के ऊपर, और उस समय चीनी फौजी जब लद्दाख में वो घुस रहे थे और एक हाइट को कैप्चर किया था, हमारे फौज को बड़ी क्लियर इंस्ट्रक्शन थी, इन्हें पुश करो। उन्होंने अगर एक बटालियन लाई है, ब्रिगेड ले जाओ, बट वी हैव टू ड्राइव देम बैक। पहले क्या होता था, चीन की ये पुरानी आदत, जब भी कोई हाई लेवल डेलीगेशन चाहे तो चीन से यहाँ आए या यहाँ का चीन जाए, तो ये चाहे चीनी सैनिक घुस जाते थे और हमारे तरफ से एक दमार्श जाता था, चुप चुप कहो, किसी को बोलो मत, कोई पता ना हो। और दमार्श क्या होता है भाई? दमार्श तो एक कागज का टुकड़ा है, एक दो टुकड़े काट के डस्टबिन में डाल दो। ये प्रोटेस्ट का कोई माने है क्या? 2014 में क्या हुआ? जब वो घुसे और जब ये हुआ निर्णय पुश बैक करो, हमने उनको पुश बैक किया, और जब चाइनीज प्रेसिडेंट ने ये कहा, मिस्टर प्राइम मिनिस्टर, लेट अस नॉट स्पॉइल द विजिट, दिस इज अ स्मॉल मैटर, वी कैन रिजॉल्व इट। प्राइम मिनिस्टर मोदी सेड, मिस्टर प्रेसिडेंट, it is not a small. When a tooth aches, the body suffers. ये भारत को देखने का दृष्टिकोण, भूगोल नहीं, यह हमारी एक जीवन प्राणी है, ये हमारी माता है, हम इसके किसी भी क्षेत्र से समझौता नहीं करेंगे। जब हम इतने दिनों तक, हमारा पूरा प्रयास होता रहा, पाकिस्तान ऑक्युपाई कर लिया पीओके, और हमारा पूरा प्रयास पिछले सरकारों का रहा किसी तरह से उन्हें वही उसी मान लो भाई, वहीं पर जो लाइन ऑफ एक्चुअल कंट्रोल है उसी को बॉर्डर मान। ये तो गनीमत थी, चीन पाकिस्तान तैयार नहीं हुआ, नहीं तो हमारे मुशर्रफ फार्मूला वगैरह क्या थे, यही था, मान लो हम उन्हें गंवा देते। ये तो थैंक्स थी, वो बात नहीं बनी, चाहे पाकिस्तान ने नहीं माना, कहा कि नहीं मैं पूरा कश्मीर से लिया। और तब आज हमारी दृष्टिकोण कुछ और है, और हमने पीओके का सेंट्रल मुद्दा बनाया है कि हमारे और पाकिस्तान के बीच में अगर कोई एक इशू है, तब तक ये दौर हमें हमारे चाहने से सिर्फ नहीं होगा, एक लंबे दौर तक चलेगा। इसके लिए हमें तैयार रहना पड़ेगा, और उस तैयार रहने में हमारी इंटरडिपेंडेंसी व्यापार सही है, स्ट्रेटेजिक डिपेंडेंसी नहीं होनी चाहिए। और तब हमने स्ट्रेटेजिक डिपेंडेंसी को खत्म करने के लिए एपीआई मैन्युफैक्चरिंग की पॉलिसी लाई, और हमारे यहाँ अब एपीआई बनना शुरू हो गया। जल्दी हमारे मैन्युफैक्चरर्स एपीआई इतनी मात्रा में बनाने लगेंगे कि हमारी डिपेंडेंसी खत्म हो जाएगी, ये हमारी शुरुआत होगी। तो हम व्यापार का बढ़ना और बॉर्डर के ऊपर तनाव, हमें दोनों को इस दृष्टिकोण से देखना होगा कि हमने चाइना को ये मान लिया है कि ये हमें परेशान करने की प्रयास करेगा और ये हमारा मित्र नहीं है। शत्रुबोध का एहसास है, हम कोशिश करेंगे कि हम अपना बनाएं। जब प्रधानमंत्री ने कहा हमारे लोग टॉय बनाएं, देखो कितने टॉय बनने शुरू हो गए, और हम टॉय बिलियंस ऑफ डॉलर के टॉय अब हम निर्यात करने लगे। ये जो पहले क्या करना, दिवाली आए नहीं कि बस सारे उन्हीं के जितने भी लाइट वगैरह चाइनीज बना रहे हैं, क्यों हम बना सकते हैं ना। तो ये हमें कम करना हो, ओवरनाइट नहीं, लेकिन हम कर रहे हैं। स्ट्रेटेजिक डिपेंडेंसी हमारी नहीं है। दूसरी बात आपने कहा कि यूथ इस G20 में क्या कर सकता है, आपका प्रश्न यही था ना कि भारतीय दृष्टिकोण को भारतीयता के लिए क्या कर सकता है। देखिए ऐसा है, सबसे पहले तो आपको थोड़ी, मैंने कहा शुरू में ही इसलिए कहा कुछ देर पहले कि भारत क्या है इसे समझने का प्रयास। हमारे स्कूलों में, हमारे कॉलेजों में भारत के बारे में कोई चर्चा नहीं होती। हम इकोनॉमी, साइंस, टेक्नोलॉजी और अभी भी पॉलिटिकल साइंस में हम लॉक, हॉब्स एंड रूसो की थ्योरियां पढ़ते हैं, जॉन स्टुअर्ट मिल का तो पढ़ते हैं, लेकिन हमारे यहाँ की इतनी जो रिच धरोहर है, जो हमारे विद्वानों ने छोड़ रखा हमारे लिए, उसके बारे में चर्चा भी नहीं करते। हमें भारत को समझना होगा, समझने का प्रयास करना होगा। ये इस प्रयास में बहुमुखी प्रयास करने पड़ेंगे, लेकिन खास करके आप लोगों के लिए मेरा आपसे निवेदन होगा कि भारत को समझने के लिए अगर कोई शॉर्टकट कहते हैं तो शॉर्टकट ये है कि आप स्वामी विवेकानंद को पढ़ें, ऋषि अरविंद को पढ़ें और गुरुदेव टैगोर का ये देसी समाज 1904 की उनकी बड़ा लेख है, उसको पढ़ें। अगर आप स्वामी विवेकानंद को पढ़ेंगे, ऋषि अरविंद को पढ़ेंगे और गुरुदेव टैगोर को पढ़ेंगे तो आपको भारत को समझने में बहुत आसान हो जाएगा। और जब आप समझेंगे, अभी आप बोलेंगे, अभी हमारे लोग, कुछ लोग उत्साह में, ऊर्जा के साथ हम भारतीय हैं, मैं गर्व है, लेकिन अब भारतीय होने का तात्पर्य क्या है? जब हम विद्वानों से, फिजिक्स के विद्वानों से ये पूछते हैं कि भैया ये बताओ, हम सब जानते हैं कि बेसिक चीज है फिजिक्स की, हम बोलते हैं कि लॉ ऑफ प्लैनेटरी मोशन केपलर ने दिया था, लेकिन हमारी विक्रमी संवत शुरू होने के समय से लगभग 2000 वर्षों से हमारे पंचांग में हमारे लोग बता देते थे कि इस तिथि को इतने बजे सूर्य ग्रहण होगा, इतने बजे चंद्र ग्रहण होगा इस जगह पर। मैं भी फिजिक्स का विद्यार्थी रहा हूं। कोई ये बता दे कि बिना प्लैनेटरी मोशन को समझे हुए ये संभव है क्या? कि हम सब जानते हैं कि कैसे सूर्य ग्रहण होता है, कैसे चंद्र ग्रहण होता है। इसके लिए बुनियादी आवश्यकता है प्लैनेटरी मोशन के लॉ को समझना। और ये जब बातें हमारे 2000 वर्षों से हो रही थी, ठीक है, हम आज नहीं जानते, बनाने वाले भी आज नहीं जानते, उनके पास भी एक फार्मूला तो है, आज भी बैठते हैं। मैंने देखा तमिलनाडु में, कुंभकोणम में कुछ लोग बैठते हैं, जब पंचांग बनाते हैं, बैठ के कुछ विद्वान गणना करके बना देते हैं। मैं उनके साथ थोड़ा उत्सुक हूँ, थोड़ा बैठने के लिए। शायद उसकी बारीकियों को कितना समझते हैं मुझे जानकारी नहीं है, हो सकता है वो समझते हो, बाहर में जानकारी नहीं है, लेकिन ये तो सच्चाई है कि 2000 वर्षों से हमें ये जानकारी थी। तो फिर भारतीय होने का तात्पर्य क्या है? अगर ये हम समझेंगे तो हमें, हमारा गौरव कई गुना बढ़ जाएगा और तब हम उत्साह और विश्वास के साथ अपनी बात आगे रख पाएंगे। और इसके लिए शॉर्टकट मैंने कहा स्वामी विवेकानंद करेंगे।
Thank you so much, sir. Our questions are never ending, and so I wind up the interaction session here. I request Professor Kamal Kumar.
It's the lunch time. I thought that you were also must be a little tired. Thank you very much. Thank you for this.
Professor Kamal Kumar, sir, for a vote of thanks.
मंच पर विराजमान आज के कार्यक्रम के मुख्य अतिथि और वर्तमान में तमिलनाडु राज्य के महामहिम राज्यपाल श्री आर रवि जी, समारोह के सम्मानित अध्यक्ष एवं लखनऊ विश्वविद्यालय के यशस्वी कुलपति प्रोफेसर आलोक कुमार राय जी, संघ का अध्यक्ष कला संघ का प्रोफेसर अरविंद अवस्थी जी, राजनीति शास्त्र विभाग लखनऊ विश्वविद्यालय की विभागाध्यक्षा प्रोफेसर मनुका खन्ना जी, लखनऊ और लखनऊ के बाहर से हमारे आमंत्रण पर पधारे हुए सभी गणमान्य
सम्मानित अतिथिगण, लखनऊ विश्वविद्यालय के और महाविद्यालयों से आए सभी प्राध्यापकगण और अधिकारीगण, स्नेहिल विद्यार्थियों तथा मीडिया बंधु, विदित है कि भारत एकता की सार्वभौमिक भावना के साथ एक पृथ्वी, एक परिवार, एक भविष्य के संकल्प के साथ G20 देशों की समूहों की अध्यक्षता कर रहा है। यह हम सबों के लिए एक गर्व का विषय है। धन्यवाद ज्ञापन के क्रम में आज मैं सर्वप्रथम आज के मुख्य अतिथि महामहिम राज्यपाल जी श्री RN रवि जी को धन्यवाद विश्वविद्यालय और विभाग की ओर से ज्ञापित करना चाहूँगा। न केवल आपने अपने व्यस्त जिम्मेदारियों के मध्य से समय निकालकर इस समारोह को अपनी उपस्थिति से गौरवान्वित किया, वरन G20 देशों के भारतीय अध्यक्षता एवं वर्तमान वैश्विक परिवेश में भारत की बहुपक्षीय भूमिका और संभावनाओं पर भी प्रकाश डाला। आज वर्तमान विश्व अनेक सामाजिक, राजनीतिक, आर्थिक एवं पर्यावरणीय चुनौतियों से घिरा हुआ है। आपका माननीय राज्यपाल जी, आपका उद्बोधन, विद्वत्पूर्ण उद्बोधन इस वैश्विक संक्रमण काल से बाहर आने में भारत की भूमिका पर प्रकाश डालता है। अतः आपके इस मार्गदर्शन हेतु हम पुनः आपके प्रति आभार व्यक्त करते हैं। तदुपरांत नित नई ऊंचाइयों को छूते हुए लखनऊ विश्वविद्यालय और इस विश्वविद्यालय परिवार के मुखिया माननीय कुलपति प्रोफेसर आलोक कुमार राय जी के प्रति धन्यवाद ज्ञापित करना चाहता हूं कि आप न केवल हम विभागों को अकादमिक आयोजनों के संचालन के लिए नित्य प्रेरित करते हैं, बल्कि कुशल मार्गदर्शन और सहयोग भी देते हैं। आज का सफल कार्यक्रम आपके ही सदिच्छा का परिणाम है। संघ अध्यक्ष कला संघ का प्रोफेसर अरविंद अवस्थी जी के प्रति हम हृदय से आभार व्यक्त करते हैं कि आपकी उपस्थिति ने इस कार्यक्रम को अकादमिक गौरव प्रदान किया। मैं हृदय से आभारी हूं अपने विभाग की विभागाध्यक्षा प्रोफेसर मनुका खन्ना जी के प्रति, जो नित्य नए अकादमिक आयोजनों से विभागों को स्पंदित करती रहती हैं। लखनऊ स्थित सभी विश्वविद्यालयों एवं महाविद्यालयों से आए सम्मानित प्राध्यापकगण एवं अधिकारीगण के प्रति भी हम हृदय से आभार व्यक्त करते हैं। आप सब हमेशा हमें अकादमिक संकल्पों को सिद्ध करने में हौसला अफजाई और उत्साहवर्धन करते हैं। लखनऊ विश्वविद्यालय के सभी सम्मानित पदाधिकारी, नगर के विभिन्न क्षेत्रों से आए हुए सभी सम्मानित अतिथिगण, खासकर उत्तर प्रदेश सरकार शासन की ओर से आए हुए सम्मानित डॉक्टर M.K. सुंदरम, प्रिंसिपल सेक्रेटरी और विश्वविद्यालय के पदाधिकारी और शिक्षकगण के प्रति भी हम आभार व्यक्त करते हैं। आपकी उपस्थिति हमें संबल प्रदान करती है। किसी भी कार्यक्रम की सार्थकता और जीवंतता विद्यार्थियों के उपस्थिति से ही परिलक्षित होती है, जिस आशीर्वाद के पात्र हैं। अंत में सभी मीडिया बंधुओं और उन आत्मीय परिजनों के प्रति प्रत्यक्ष या अप्रत्यक्ष रूप से इस कार्यक्रम के संचालन में सहयोग दिया, उनके प्रति भी विभाग हृदय से आभारी है। एक बार पुनः आप सभी का धन्यवाद एवं आभार।
Thank you so much, sir. Now I request the distinguished guests and our audience to sing the national anthem.
गढ़ बन अधिनायक
request all of you to please remain seated while our guests leave.